Hi, did you know that every 10th person in the world starts out as a twin, but finally is born alone? This phenomenon is called the vanishing twin syndrome. It may be that you are affected too, without ever having to know about it. Hi, my name is Antonia. I'm a psychotherapist, a pharmacist, and a coach. And today we will be talking about the vanishing twin syndrome and how it can affect your life. So how can you know if you ever missed someone too much that this ever happened to you? Or if you have really strong feelings for something and you feel like it's missing from your life, maybe you have everything you ever wanted and still feels like something's missing. You have no reason to complain, but deeply you feel like something's not right, something's missing, and something's unresolved. If you ever felt this way, then stay with me till the end, because it might be true that you lived through cell memory, a traumatic experience in the womb before your birth, which will also influence your adult life. There are more and more cases of in vitro fertilization. It's an artificial way of fertilizing for conceiving a baby when people cannot conceive naturally. But what happens if you are one of these babies? What happens if you have no idea why, but the beginning of your life started in a way that you were not just one but two people at first, and you never started out alone in the womb, the journey of life? This is what we call the vanishing twin syndrome. This means that the very early stages of pregnancy, two embryos start to develop together, but finally only one remains alive at a certain stage and only one child is born. The other twin dies and almost disappears without a trace, at least biologically. And here comes the shocking part. Many people, the born twin, carries this imprint of the early loss his whole life without ever knowing about it. So if you have ever felt like you have an ongoing sense of lack and you've done all the self-help and you've done all the therapy in the world, but you still feel like it's not helping. You still feel as if you're an in-between. You have a wife, you have a child, you have everything, yet you feel like something's missing from my life. If you have a strong desire for attachment, for example, like you cannot let go of an ex or a partner, you have this clinging feeling, this neediness to be together day and night with someone, or on the contrary, total difficulty in relationships. Or a big sign is when you have an inexplicable grief after a relationship ends, or just in your daily life and you cannot explain why, because maybe your mother and father is alive, then it may be the root of your experience of a twin loss. And yes, the signs that I'm describing, many in the self-help communities would describe this as codependency. And yes, indeed, I do think, and I experienced with many of my guests with whom I have worked, that many signs of codependency start from an early loss of a twin, because they have extremely strong desire to connect to something that is no longer there. And the big sign in this case is the feeling of grief for the loss of the partner. Oftentimes it's stronger than the loss of one's own parent. That is, it's harder to separate from a relationship that we had than actually after the burial of maybe one of our parents, because there is a grief in our unconscious memory. We have three parts of our brain: the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the totally unconscious mind. Every video I will be making, we will be talking mostly about the unconscious parts of our mind, the implicit memories, all the places in our brain that actually scientists are discovering right now with epigenetics and a lot of new studies that we do have cell memory, and how important it is for us to live a more balanced life, to understand everything, how deeply it could come from our psyche. Our body and our soul preserves this experience of the loss of the twin. The cell memory, that is the memory of the body, can carry experiences. So this is why epigenetic information and the fact can become very important, because we can carry that pain in adulthood that there was someone besides us that we lost. So this topic can give an answer to many people who are asking themselves, what is missing in my life? Why can't I be happy alone? I don't mean like never have a partner, but many people find themselves very lonely, and that's not a normal state, because even though we are to have friends and family around us, we have to be okay within ourselves, and many times we're not. Many times there is a block that we cannot resolve, and it's because of a twin birth. So twin pregnancies are much more common than we would think, every 10th of the conceptions. And taking the medical background, the ultrasound examinations have shown us that in the early stages more embryos start to develop, but not all of them reach birth. And the emotional and the psychological part of this is that many traumas are kept in the cell memory. So every cell has a memory, and in this case, when we are talking about in the womb, what happens actually in the womb is that the surviving fetus, although absolutely unconsciously, it will experience the loss, it will experience the change in the environment. And later this can appear as a sense of lack, as a feeling of abandonment and difficulties in relationships. And as we know now from research, cell memories can remember in a way this sort of loss, which in adulthood it can emerge in inexplicable anxiety, stress, and the loss of a partner. Maybe you have tried to have 5 or 6 relationship works and it always ends up with someone leaving you. So it is very important to understand that this is not a conscious experience. There is no way to remember it, but it is a deeply embedded experience in the memory of ourselves. And that is why it's very, very important for us to make conscious awareness of this fact. So let's see the medical background. We can take 2 studies, but there are many studies done. You can research them. We can take an IVF pregnancy, the Frontiers in Endocrinology 2022 study. So I examined this first study where IVF was used, like artificial fertilization. And the research found that the vanishing twin syndrome, when one embryo died in the early stages of pregnancy, it is often associated with the development of a hematoma, that is a blood clot, in the uterus during the first trimester. What does this simply mean? If someone has been conceived via IVF, there is a higher chance that the pregnancy will be twins. And if one of the twins dies, visible signs may appear in the mother's body. This is what the research says. Let's examine what are the emotional sides of a hematoma. Every single physical ailment could have an emotional equivalent to it. So let's see the emotional side of a hematoma. The emotional background of the fetal death caused by a hematoma means that the pregnant mother had consciously or absolutely unaware, unconsciously a fear of loss. Before, she may have already lost a baby, she may have had an abortion, or simply carries this fear because of intergenerational similar deaths or abortions or fears of loss of a baby that have appeared. What do I mean here? Let's examine. What is a hematoma biologically? A hematoma is a blood clot. That is, blood collects in the uterus in the early stages of pregnancy. Connected to the vanishing twin syndrome, when one embryo dies, bleeding and tissue reaction may appear in the mother's body. So according to psychosomatic interpretations, the emotional interpretation of the hematoma, which says that behind every physical symptom there is a prior psychological conflict first, this time of the mothers. This is also the basis of my individual sessions and my studies. Without exception, there has always been found an emotional side which correlated to the generational trauma that we found in people. So in many cases of hematoma, it is a loss conflict. It is a trauma of a deep loss, a deep fear conflict, or even a deep grief conflict that appears, which means that the mother unconsciously experiences that I may lose someone. Maybe she starts out with 2 twins, but knowing she's pregnant, knowing that she has twins, or maybe she never knew that she has twins, maybe she doesn't even know she's pregnant, but the moment she gets pregnant, it activates her survival system. So if there are limiting beliefs like I may lose someone, or I'm afraid I lose someone, or I'm afraid I cannot keep a person that I love, or I cannot keep my child because of any reason, or she might fear losing her partner while she's being pregnant, all of this have the same emotional background of fearing losing someone very, very close and very, very dear. And whether she knows that she's pregnant or she doesn't even know it, all this could be the emotional background. All these limiting beliefs can make up a hematoma because it makes a very big conflict. It makes a traumatic event to appear in the uterine lining and in the blood circulation as a biological response to trauma. So if in the family 1 or 2 or 3 generations back, there was previously the loss of a child, the loss of a loved one, a miscarriage, or a vanishing twin syndrome, or even twins being lost in the bloodline, this so to say imprint can reappear in the body of the descendants, in our case the mother. So on an intergenerational level, if the mother or grandmother or great-grandmother lived a situation where she couldn't keep a child or couldn't keep a loved one, she feared, it's a conflict, it's trauma of fear, it's a limiting belief of fear, then sadly a hematoma can develop in the womb because the parent unconsciously replays the whole scenario of that experience. Thus, the Hematoma is not just a biological reaction. We have to get accustomed to the fact that we cannot talk only about biology. We need to make biology and psychology together, because the unconscious mind of our body isn't separate from the biology of our body. Every case is very unique. So besides the fact that the hematoma has a psychosomatic cause of being formed by fear of a great loss, beyond this I cannot say more in general in a video, because every case is very unique, and very different limiting beliefs can block unconsciously that we are bringing from our ancestors to stand behind every loss, but these are the most common ones. So how can we find out if we started out as a twin pregnancy? The signs in adulthood that you could see, I already talked about a few of these, like constant sense of lack, like maybe you have a good life, you fought for everything, but you have this sense of lack, as if someone's missing from my life, or your relationships are not working out. No matter what you do, at a certain stage in your life, someone leaves you. They always leave. When you have this limiting belief, they always leave, it is very strongly possible that it's coming from a vanishing twin syndrome. Conversely, very difficult relationships, unexplainable feelings of grief. So when a partner leaves, we do not feel like it's normal for someone to leave and we start our life again, or we make actual upgrades in our lives. No, when we have a vanishing twin syndrome, we have such an inexplicable feeling of grief that we feel like we lost a part of us. We feel like we lost an arm. So if you choose to work with this, be careful. I know there are many self-help teachers out there, but it's actually very important, because we are talking of deeply of the unconscious mind and cell memories, because someone needs to be very, very clear on somatic therapy, how you do that, so that it can help you see and understand how you feel and how to understand this grief process. So it is very important, if someone knows how to work with cell memory, with somatic therapy, that you are convinced that the expert is actually very authentic and that they are uncovering programs from your real unconscious mind, not the subconscious, or even worse, not projecting their own assumptions onto you, because the worst that someone could do is to project their own things onto you, onto your healing. So these are very important matters, and one must understand not to play with them if someone doesn't understand how to do it. And we all know as healers that it's very important not to re-traumatize the client. I know, because I have been working in pharmacies, I've been working with clinical studies during my life, and now I'm working in coaching and psychotherapy. So it's extremely important to understand that we have a serious moral responsibility to do our work in such a way, everything that's healing, to do it in a way that we do not harm the client more than we help them. So choose wisely. And in the same time, not every grief process, not every lack of self-love comes from the case that it is most certain that someone started out as a twin pregnancy, because every single case is unique. But what can we do if we do find out that we were the survivors of a twin loss in the womb, and we do feel guilt for surviving, we do feel guilt for accepting things, we do feel guilt because we are picked and chosen for various things in life? The most important is clearly acceptance. This is the purpose of this video. It's really, really important to understand that it is not your fault. If this happened, if you weren't born with your twin, it means that it was a biological process. And yes, we may feel imposter syndrome, we may feel survivor's guilt, we might have many, many feelings regarding we are all the time searching for someone or searching for our brother or sister in a partner. We think everybody is our soulmate. We think we have so special connections with people who are actually narcissists, and we have the feeling that, oh, this was supposed to be so special. So we make a kind of a delusion. We can make a kind of idealization of a relationship because we really want to make a person from the outside world, someone we like, someone we are attracted to. We want to make him fit into our little box of what it means to be whole again, but we want to be whole again with the twin. So it's really, really important to see these signs. Clearly, the first thing to do is self-knowledge work, therapies, especially everything that has to do with cell memory releases, somatic techniques, meditations. We do need to be careful how we work. I really like a technique that I developed where we can get in hemisync the two hemispheres, because we have the logical side of our brain and we have the creative side of our brain, and the two together can make very, very important harmony, meaning that we will understand and get to another level of consciousness after we understand our loss, after we understand the real cause of our problem, the cell memory cause, the whole circumstances of the story, why our bodies and mind and spirit chose this experience. At the current time, I am having workshops in Budapest, Hungary, and at my workshops, usually there will be people who had either a twin loss, either they have a twin sister, either they have a twin brother. So almost at every one of my workshops, there is something with the twin, because I had this vanishing twin syndrome. So it's very interesting, because we all know that everyone who comes, for example, in my field, will be a projection of my reality, will be something that my unconscious mind projects out into the reality. You can think of it that everything we have inside, everything that we inherited from our grandparents, great-grandparents, it will be a projection to the outside world. So me personally, I went through this process. I went through the grief. I worked with many people through this, through the hurt and the pain of the memory loss of the cell, the guilt of being alive, the guilt of existing, the survivor's guilt. So I developed these techniques to release this. Who I really loved working with was Dr. John DeMartini. I worked with him, and I worked with many coaches, hypnosis techniques, and I've learned quite the things during the years. And I developed my own technique regarding cell memory loss, regarding everything that we had in such an unconscious way embedded in our memory that we do not have conscious access to it. So if you do feel like you have an inexplicable emptiness inside of you, it may be you are experiencing a twin loss speaking through you. Vanishing twin syndrome is much more common than we would think, and it can leave a very deep mark in us. So we need to recognize it. We need to process it so it can help us overcome our losses. So please like, share, subscribe to the video. It is a very new topic, put together cell memory, psychology, biology, and I really want to make an integrative space where we can share our messages. You can write in the comment if you ever had something similar happen to you. And if you feel like you cannot cope, especially if you had a vanishing twin syndrome, you can find my homepage, and I do accept some consultations. I think I have 2 or 3 free spaces for individual consultations where we do trauma release. We balance the 2 hemispheres, which will help you go to another state of consciousness. If you are aware with David Hawkins' states of consciousness, then you can see that we can make this happen. Have a great day. Bye.